Attention, mech and crew. We are 15 minutes out from the drop point. Until then, please stand by with Drop Ship Banter. Over.
Hey everyone, it's Rosenfront, and welcome to another episode of Drop Ship Banter, where I, your host, will, for however long he can, babble like an idiot about the topics of the BattleTech universe and beyond. And on today's episode, oh boy, do I have a subject for you. Man, the Free Worlds League. Now, I can't even keep a straight face. I'm gonna be real. I was going to make this entire episode based on the concept of me trying to defend why the Free Worlds League is not a giant burning husk of a mess. And I can't, guys. Oh God. All right, let me calm down before this episode just devolves into just utter nonsense. For the past week, I have been doing a lot of research on the Free Worlds League because I did not know a lot about them. I knew about the memes, I knew about the jokes, which basically broke down to the concept of the reason why the Capellans are the punching bag of the entire Inner Sphere is because the Free Worlds League is too busy punching itself in the face. And it's kind of true. Oh my god. The Free Worlds League is a bureaucratic nightmare. It is one of the most controversial states. I honestly don't even know how these guys hold themselves together most of the time. But they have. And their lore and their history is more interesting than I could ever imagine. At first, I thought there was nothing to these guys. Like, it was just House Marik babysitting a bunch of whiny little brats. But it's more than that. It's more than just a bunch of squabbling little nation states that are about to balkanize. And that's what today's subject is going to be about. It's going to be about underestimating this nation that deserves a lot more respect than it gets. It's about a nation compared to all the other successor states throughout the Inner Sphere who attempts the concept of democracy. Whether they succeed or not is another story, but at least they're trying. And it's going to be about, do I like the Free Worlds League? So let's just jump into that subject. Now, when trying to differentiate the differences in terms of its successes and failings, the Free Worlds League can be broken down into 5 kind of categories, and they go like this. Why the Free Worlds League was even formed to begin with, why its government operates the way it does, how its military functions, the importance of trade, and of course, House Marik. And each of these is integral to understanding further why this successor state honestly has to deal with both so many problems and why it's able to survive those problems. So, starting off for its formation, I think most of us kind of understand the gist of it, but I'll just reiterate quickly for the people in the back who don't know. Now, in the mid to late 2200s, the Terran Alliance, the first attempt at actually trying to rule humanity throughout the stars, was going through a little bit of a phase. And it was losing control of its outward colonies. Now, as the Terran Alliance slowly left the outward colonies to fend for themselves, several of these colonies, which were pretty much nation states in everything but name, decided to form a coalition to stave off any sort of chaos that would follow suit. These included the Federation of Orient, the Regulan Principality, and of course the Marik Republic, or the Republic of Marik. Later on, these pseudo-nations would combine to form the Articles of Unification, or, as it's more commonly known, the Treaty of Marik. And from this whole unification would come the basis for the Free Worlds League. Now, why am I bringing all of this up? I think it's interesting to see this more as the reason why the foundations of the Free Worlds League differ so much. Simply put, it wasn't through hostile conquest or takeover. Okay, there was a little bit of takeover, I'm not gonna lie, they did decide to go afterwards, stomp on the Stuart commonality, but a little bit more into that later. The reason why this in particular, several smaller states agreeing to work alongside one another instead of conquest and just good old-fashioned fisticuffs, shows a surprising amount of both conviction and patience on part of the smaller nations that make up the Free Worlds League to work together for mutual benefit. And that is what this is. It is mutual benefit. From this unification and afterwards, every state, nation, principality, whatever you want to call it, that has joined the Free Worlds League has benefited greatly in terms of economics and protection and travel and transportation and just technology as a whole. This has provided many smaller nations that would otherwise have just been swallowed up the protection and ability to grow without the fear of absorption. And also provides the ability to be heard in a more, I don't want to call it fair, because it's not technically, but at least you get a say when you join the Free Worlds League. I guess I'll go with that. Definitely more so than any other successor state. And in this principle comes another surprising side effect of the Free Worlds League. Many other successor states work principally to create an ethnocentric belief or guiding principle to which everyone belonging to that successor state, whether you're Lyrian Commonwealth or Federated Sons or Capellan Confederation or Draconis Combine, has to follow. And I think you get what I'm saying. Like, for example, Lyrian Commonwealth, it is going to be dominated with a culture based specifically on old Prussian values. Same with the Combine, old imperialist Japan values. Same with the Federated Sons, old British, American, French values, and same with Capellans. You get the gist. What I'm trying to say is that's not the same with the Free Worlds League. From the Treaty of Marik, the basic principle is thus. As long as you follow the governing body, that is the federal parliamentary system, and you pay your taxes, and you follow the guiding laws, which are when we go to war and who we trade with, you as an individual not only get to witness and have say to those laws, you also get to keep your unique blend of culture and identity. This has done wonders for the Free Worlds League. It is now a melting pot where everywhere else in the inner sphere is literally just more or less one blob of principal beliefs. So in the Free Worlds League, you can have whatever culture or society you want. From one planet to another in the Free Worlds League, you could meet completely different ideologies and beliefs and religions. Like, there is everyone and everyone in the Free Worlds League. And the fact that somehow there is still mutual cooperation among all these varying different cultures and people groups is astounding. And I find it just fascinating that these guys are able to hold on to it. And yes, it has something to do with the government, and we're going to quickly jump into that soon enough. But I find this to be an incredibly redeeming quality in terms of its formation. It kind of serves as the old proverb that two heads are better than one for coming up with ideas and concepts. Except with the Free Worlds League, it's like having 200 heads all coming up with brand new ideas and concepts that can be used to counteract any sort of problem, both within and without the fear of being silenced by some authoritarian asshat who says, I don't like your idea. I just find that incredibly beneficial. Now, I'm not gonna lie and say that it's all beautiful sunshine utopia. It's not. For one thing, because of the Treaty of Marik, individual nations and states are treated different. I'm not going to pretend that that's not a reality. In particular, you just have to look at the Republic of Marik, or as it's more commonly known nowadays, the Marik Commonwealth. Because of its size, it greatly has more say and favor in terms of government. And it often dominates smaller member states. And that goes throughout all the regions of the Free Worlds League. If you are a big member, you get to play and put down the little guy. This in turn creates a very bitter divide between member states of the Free Worlds League, between those who have and those who have not. And member states will often argue, on one hand, that they're spending too much of their own income to support a poorer member state that isn't pulling its weight, while smaller states that are destitute and poor will continually be infuriated that they cannot do anything to change or improve their quality of life, while larger member states get to reap all the benefits from trade and wealth and military conquest. And this divide has always been one of the core problems with the League in trying to build any sort of unification. Not only that, depending from state to state, whatever government that is provincial is not the business of the federal government. So, what do I mean? Well, if you're a dictatorship, as long as you pay taxes and follow the federal government of the Free Worlds League, the parliament, you're free to be a dictatorship. If you're a theocracy, you get to be an absolute theocracy, and so on and so forth. This causes yet another problem within the Free Worlds League, where governments, depending on their philosophy or their political alignment, will either hate the federal government for how it's run, thinking that it's tyrannical and interfering with their way of life, or will just bitterly hate their next door neighbor state because their form of government is completely polar opposite to their own. And this will lead to constant feuding and civil strife that the federal government within the Free Worlds League will have to continually put down time and time again. Now, these two things, size difference between small and big states, and differences in beliefs in terms of government-run authority, in terms of provincial versus federal, will be the next subject, which is the government itself. All right. Sorry, you gotta give me a second. I gotta hype myself up for this, because I am nowhere near qualified to talk about the intricacies of government, but I will attempt. All right, I'm ready. Here I go. So, on paper, the Free Worlds League is technically a federal government, with a little bit of democracy sprinkled here and there for good measure. Though every word I just uttered is needed to be taken with a grain of salt. There are technically two governing bodies within the federal government. One is the Lords of the Realm, and the other is the Parliament itself. Parliament is run by elected members from each of the member states of the Free Worlds League. Those member states are otherwise known as provinces. Each province is allowed to send a member of Parliament, or an MP, to represent it within the Parliament itself. And the number of MPs that you can send are in relation to both how much money you give to the federal government in terms of taxes, as well as how big your population is in relation to the league itself overall. And in regards to how members of parliament are actually elected, that depends on the province. Some provinces honestly do try to go through the democratic means of allowing each and every citizen to have their say and vote, while other provinces just have a leader who says, I am going to parliament, and that's the end of the story. Now, as for what parliament honestly does, that is simple. Their job is primarily to pass laws, create taxes, and decide on the day-to-day goings-on of the realm. Lastly, the members of parliament also have the important task of voting the Speaker of the House, whose job is to serve as the counterbalance to the Captain General of the Free Worlds League, as well as elect League Council. The League Council is the elected body that the Speaker puts in charge of the 9 various different federal agencies of the Free Worlds League. That can range from telecommunication, to justice, to transportation and trade, and is very contested. Both the Speaker of the House and League Council are where a lot of the political infighting and intrigue happen, since getting any member of your province to sit on that seat as Speaker almost guarantees you a free hand in how the league will be run for at least the 2 years that the Speaker gets to rule. And it cannot go unstated how many problems have stemmed from someone just getting super butthurt that they were not elected to the Speaker position. And a lot of the issues that cause the Free Worlds League to just freeze up in terms of crisis stem from this itself. Now, if this already sounds like a mess, we haven't even touched on the Lords of the Realm yet, and that's where we're going right now. See, the Lords of the Realm are different from Parliament for one key reason in particular. They represent the non-elected officials of the Free Worlds League. Technically speaking, the Lords of the Realm don't have any actual say. They are more of I would say a token position given to aristocracy and nobles who run individual planets and worlds within the League. The official position of the Lords of the Realm is to serve as an advisory council to Parliament, but since both bodies of government hate each other for reasons obvious to some, it really just leads to further arguments being cemented between them and other individual members of Parliament, and it just becomes a gigantic free-for-all of people screaming at one another. Not only that, Lords of the Realm genuinely see the position they're given as nothing more than token at best, and honestly don't even arrive to official meetings. Oftentimes, those who do are only looking to get some kind of media attention or looking to just stir up trouble within Parliament, and they honestly succeed when they do that, which really just serves to further complicate the entire process of the governing body of the Free Worlds League. Last but not least, we have the position of Captain General, which I think most of us have a good idea of what this is, but I'll just quickly summarize. The Captain General was not supposed to be a hereditary role, but ever since the collapse of Star League has passed on to every leading House member of House Marik, and is to serve the position of Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces of the Free Worlds League. Not only do they have overall control of the Free Worlds League during a time of war or in order to defend the realm from invasion or expansion, they also have some sweeping powers that allow them to veto whatever Parliament says to them if they really feel like it. This constantly causes a power struggle between House Marik and the rest of Parliament over who really gets to rule the Free Worlds League, and just adds to the cluster F that is this entire mess of a government. And I mean, I can go even further into the provinces or member states and their individual governments that can refute certain things that the federal government demands of them, and then go into their individual planets that refuse those governments. But I think we get the point. The overall gist of what I'm trying to say is the government that makes up the Free Worlds League is very complex and has a lot of levels to it that most other successor states do not have to deal with at any given time. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Half of you are probably already rolling your eyes at me saying, Frozen Front, for the past 5 minutes, you've just described why the Free Worlds League deserves the title of being the self-punching punching bag of the inner sphere. Why are we even talking about this? The other half of you are probably having a drinking game at how many times I've said the word garbage or just mess. So, let me try to explain my position. Yes, the Free Worlds League, in terms of its government, has a lot of issues. A lot of issues that other successor states do not have to deal with simply because their leaders get to live the life of a Machiavellian tyrant. Yes, that is completely and honestly true. However, I find it intriguing that despite this entire improbable ability to survive in a world where other successor states are far more coordinated and are far more centralized in their government structure, that the Free Worlds League is still able to survive and thrive, in fact, despite everything that is thrown at it. And I think I have a couple theories as to why this is so. For one, yes, while the member states and member provinces of the Free Worlds League and the Parliament itself all dislike one another to varying degrees, what they can honestly unify with is their hatred for the rest of the inner sphere. What I mean by this is the members of the Free Worlds League are very proud in the fact that they see themselves as the true heirs to Star League. That they are the only ones honestly holding up the title of republicanism and democracy and representative government, while the rest of the successor states have fallen into varying degrees of just tyranny and just absolute rule. They are the ones still bearing the torch, and to them, they feel like they are the true heirs of Star League. And for a second theory, the Free Worlds League is good at one thing in particular, and it's one thing people tend to overlook. They are very good at uniting against a common enemy. as House Marik has realized and taken advantage of numerous times, if you can give every member of the Free Worlds League an enemy that they super despise and dislike, they will unite behind House Marik and the Captain Generalship and just go to town on that enemy like nobody else's business. And that's what we're moving on to now. The literal military arm of the Free Worlds League is a big part in why it's still standing here. And it does not get enough respect as it deserves. I get that they're technically the fourth power, but quite literally, if it wasn't for the complicated system of government, I would say the Free Worlds League military would probably be second in terms of tactics and experience. They are not a joke. And if you are to literally look down on these guys for a second, you're going to end up with an Orion-sized hole in your chest and an awesome fist just punching your mech into the ground. And you know what? Let's just jump into it. Let's start talking about Free World League military. So, starting off, I guess I'll begin with this. In comparison to other forces throughout the Inner Sphere, and in comparison to other successor states as a whole, the Free Worlds League military, or FWLM for short, is unique in one specific sense. That being its use of combined arms tactics. And, okay, don't get me wrong, mech warriors and mechs are still predominantly the spearhead and are the main means of achieving victory when the Free Worlds League is thinking of any sort of military venture. Hell, one member of House Marik loves mechs so bloody much that he thought it was a good idea to take an entire regiment or two of his mechs and mech warriors and train them in some esoteric pseudo knightly honor course and poetically name them the Knights of the Inner Sphere, in the hopes of both boosting morale in the Free Worlds League military and setting an example for how future warfare should be handled and administered. And okay, this is getting on a little bit of a tangent and I'm going to stop soon, but I don't know what his plan was with the whole let's make a giant knightly order of battle mechs. Maybe he just watched the clans bust in and beat freaking FedCom and the Combine in the face and was like, maybe there's something to this LARPing. I don't know. If I ever cover Jihad, I'll talk more about them. But suffice it to say, despite his misgivings on the whole, let's make them into a knightly order of just giant robot space knights, the regiments that are brought out of the Free Worlds League in terms of mechs and mech warriors are well trained and are on par with any of their successor state counterparts. And perhaps even more so, given the fact that over time the Free Worlds League military structure has slowly transitioned to the concept of earning your rank through merit and actual skill and training, meaning that a lot of the commanders that are in charge of mech units themselves realize that they are built for specific tasks and won't just throw them into a bonfire simply because they think Big Stompy Robot is going to trump whatever comes their way. Now, in combination with that kind of thinking, the mechs themselves and the lances are often supported by a wide variety of tanks and aircraft and infantry support that allow for very, very quick adaptation to the battlefield. And I mean sufficient and successful adaptation. Like, the Free Worlds League can literally go toe-to-toe with any kind of lance, and if they're going by combined arms tactics, they have a very good shot of always coming out on top as a victor, depending on how good the commander is. Not only that, many of the forces within the Free Worlds League military itself that aren't even part of mech regiments and are just by themselves, like infantry regiments or mobile armor or just aerospace wings, are trained specifically in anti-mech warfare and know exactly how to take down a superior lance of mechs in the most timely and efficient manner. Add to that is the fact that the Free Worlds League also has one of the largest and strongest remaining piss off, oh dear god, not my planet, war fleets that are still remaining in the Inner Sphere. And if you were new to BattleTech, you'd probably be wondering why the hell these guys just haven't taken over yet. And well, there's a really good reason for that. Do you want to take a wild guess as to what it is? I'll give you a hint. You know what? Never mind. Screw the hint. It's the government. Yeah, The true Achilles heel of the Free Worlds League's ability to wage war and muster its own true military capability seems to stem from the League's own problem of dealing with the concept of someone having absolute control over all military forces. Which, I mean, yes, on paper, that does make sense, but the alternative that they've created is arguably led to a lot more problems. That alternative has been splitting the military into 3 separate corps, with one being controlled by the Captain General, aka House Marik, one under the control of Parliament itself, and the last being divided amongst all the different provinces and member states of the Free Worlds League, and serving more as a militia force who owes its loyalty to its own province, or in reality, whoever funds them. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize that this kind of division is only going to cause continual infighting and disagreement as to who has the right to order who around. Which it does, and that is constant. The provisional militia forces, for example, only often follow the Captain General or Parliament when 2 things occur. A, when the Free Worlds League is under immediate threat, or B, when its own self-interest or the interest of its own particular province comes into fruition. And since that interest can range from wanting to constantly go to war with the Capellans or Larans in a good old game of border skirmish smackdown, or wanting every single province or nation state within the Free Worlds League to be free to create their own private military force, to wanting to even reduce all forms of military aggression in order to increase trade and commerce, it's kind of easy to see why some militia forces will oftentimes give Parliament and even the Captain General the double bird salute. Additionally, Parliament and the Captain General are in a constant tug-of-war struggle over who has authority over the federal troops within the Free Worlds League itself. Oftentimes with the Captain General demanding complete control over all forces while bolstering his own troops loyal to House Marik, and the Parliament, in retaliation, constantly limiting the resources necessary for the Captain General to build up his own forces, all the while providing more autonomy to the province militias. This puts the realm in constant risk of being underfunded and unprepared in the worst possible times of crisis. Lastly, to top all of this off, the recent creation of the Knights of the Inner Sphere has only served to further complicate and create tensions between the many provinces and Parliament, who see it as an unnecessary and ridiculous organization built solely to increase the power of the Captain General and withhold elite weaponry and mechs from them. All the while, the Knights of the Inner Sphere see themselves as the elite special forces that are above the common troops of the Free Worlds League, thanks in part to their own antiquated knightly code of honor. And I'm just going to cover this quickly because I know someone is going to say something about it. We also have to take into consideration the Secret Intelligence Service of the Free Worlds League, which is otherwise known as SAFE. I'm not making it up, that's literally what they called their secret service. It's an acronym for Search and Find Everything. Really though, they should have just called themselves Oxymoron, because they're a complete and utter joke. While they are able to function and gather some intelligence on other successor states, they are arguably the weakest, most underfunded, and useless secret service when compared to others throughout the Inner Sphere. And this is most likely purposefully done, at least in my theory, by all the other rival political factions within the Free Worlds League, due to the paranoia of having yet another faction within the state itself that could theoretically serve as a rival. So, while they are a thing, don't think a lot on them, they really don't do much. Now, to summarize quickly, this fracturing and constant disagreement within the military structure of the Free Worlds League has led to numerous instances of infighting, rebellion, disobedience, and outright civil war. As a matter of fact, the Free Worlds League military, when it isn't busy trying to fend off rival houses or commence with military operation, likes to use its pastime to literally occupy and put down its own series of revolts and micro-civil wars. Like, you think the FedCom civil war was bad. If you were to ask the Free Worlds League, that was just a Tuesday. And I can honestly keep going on and on and on about every single issue and hurdle that the Free Worlds League military has to deal with on a regular basis, but I think we all get the gist of the situation. And to avoid making this go on for another 2 hours straight, I think we're just going to move forward from here. To summarize all of this in a nice little bow, the Free Worlds League military, in essence, is a truly capable and frightening force, when given the chance. However, that chance is often stymied by the fact that it's connected to the Free Worlds League and its government, which, through its constant bickering and political intrigue, continually creates factions and division throughout all the military corps, preventing it from ever truly unifying into one single cohesive force. Now, moving away from the subject where everyone in this successor state is at each other's throats, we move on to trade, which, if anything, is the one true unifier of the Free Worlds League. In fact, if anyone even wants to talk about the Free Worlds League in any sort of fashion, the first thing that you talk about, other than the political infighting or the inability of the military to fully unify, is trade and commerce. And this is where the Free Worlds League truly succeeds beyond anyone's expectation. In the Free Worlds League, trade means everything. It's a way of life. It honestly is the official state religion of the Free Worlds League. And as I'm about to explain in a bit, it's not hard to see why. Now, while we haven't touched on this fully, many citizens within the Free Worlds League, despite all their various cultural, religious, and societal differences, are truly proud of the fact that in theory, not in practice, but in theory, they are one of the last remaining pieces of Star League. Particularly the idea of quote-unquote, the idea that democratic process and a belief in the republic system of governance is worth fighting for. I mean, how you spin that when you have house lords governing in said republic and an aristocracy fitting into it, I don't know, but whatever, let them believe what they want to believe. Anyways, this belief system also stems into another concept, and that is the belief in the free market economy and that every citizen within the Free Worlds League has the right to make and earn as much as they see fit through their own effort and skill and trials and tribulations. Now, to other citizens within the Inner Sphere, most would view this and view the average citizen in the Free Worlds League as greedy, self-centered individuals who are really only interested in making deals and relationships if it betters them economically or financially. And while this is really just some good old-fashioned stereotyping, it is fair to say that business and commerce are what make anything in the Free Worlds League move. And it also is really one of the true reasons it is a powerhouse among other successor states. For example, during the Fourth Succession War and up into and after the Clan Invasion, the Free Worlds League decided to just sit on the sidelines and make a killing selling everything and anything from food supplies to spaceships to fully armed mech units to everyone willing to pay their prices. And by doing this, they increased their economic might and wealth so much that going into the 31st century, the Free Worlds League had their pulse on anything that was being traded within the Inner Sphere. Yet this reliance on commerce is also kind of their double-edged sword. The fact that the Free Worlds League relies so heavily on free trade for their growth and expansion when compared to other successor states such as the Lyran Commonwealth or the Federated Suns puts them in a very vulnerable position that when all-out war breaks out and holds the economy hostage, they're in quite a bind. Looking back at the Succession Wars, for example, the First and Third Succession Wars nearly bankrupted the entire state as trade was put to like an abrupt and complete halt. And every single citizen within the Free Worlds League thought that the Inner Sphere was about to go through an apocalypse, not because they were facing military disaster, but because they were facing an economic disaster. Additionally, while the free market economy allows for many new companies and industries to move into the successor state to take advantage of economic incentives that Parliament and the Captain General put in place, the Free Worlds League industry is still lacking far behind that of the Draconis Combine and Federated Suns in terms of production output, especially when it comes to military equipment such as mechs. However, despite those negatives, the free market and the belief in trade over fighting has been a great boon and benefit to the Free Worlds League, especially when compared to the alternatives that other successor states use. At the expense of sounding like I'm just repeating myself, trade has not only allowed for wealth and prosperity to enter the Free Worlds League in abundance, but more importantly, it has also created a unifying belief that was sorely missing, that unites all the different provinces, peoples, hell, even the Parliament and Captain General can get behind under one banner. And that belief has paid off big time, especially when in the 31st century, the Free Worlds League, for all intents and purposes, was the commanding force of any trade and economic growth going on in the Inner Sphere. Finally, last but not least, we're going to have to talk about House Marik and its relationship with the Free Worlds League as the overall governing leader of the successor state. And for this part, I'm just going to freestyle a bit, because I'm not going to use the notes, as you've probably already guessed, that I've written down for this entire episode. Because truth be told, the history and backstory of House Marik and every single member of the royal lineage is so long and complicated to cover that it would take an entire mini-series discussing all the ups and downs of this family and everything that has gone through in terms of triumphs and tribulations and problems that it has caused the Free Worlds League. So instead, I'm just going to try and for the next couple of minutes put my own thoughts on what I really think about them and their relationship to the Free Worlds League as a whole. Personally, I find House Marik to be one of the weaker ruling families. And that is both because of the power that they actually wield, and truthfully, because I think they're just incompetent as rulers. I'm going to say this. Yes, there are some members of House Marik that have done great things for the Free Worlds League, and are reasonable to the situation at hand. Throughout their entire history, many members of the family have realized the strengths that come from governing in the Free Worlds League the way that they do, in regards to the Captain Generalship, and know how to properly navigate the political landscape of the state in order to achieve their goals. Hell, at times they've even found ways to attain power without having to resort to violence. Which, okay, that's endearing. And yes, compared to the other bloodthirsty, Machiavellian, warring, tyrannical, batshit crazy rulers of the Inner Sphere, they have a relatively good line of people that are quote-unquote reasonable in terms of ruling. Hell, really, they're probably the only royal family that I can think of that will put up with someone questioning them and critiquing them about how they run things. And they may be the only ruling family that will be open to the concept of debate. Whether or not they honestly like that is a completely different story, and more than likely they are just biding their time and waiting for the day that they don't have to put up with the whiny complaints of politicians or the needless worries of what the plebs think of them. But really they can't, so whatever. And yes, I do find it incredibly intriguing that out of all the other houses within the Inner Sphere, House Marik is the only one who honestly actually has to deal with any sort of real ramifications or consequences when they fail or attempt some stupid overreaching goal that they know they shouldn't have tried, with power checks that are put on top of them to serve and prevent any sort of insane cockamamie plan that they might have cooking up in the back of their minds that would otherwise just cause harm to the entire state. But, and this is a very big but, despite all of that, it cannot be denied that House Marik has done a huge, monumental amount of damage to the Free Worlds League, either through their own incompetence or through their own malicious intentions, or often or not, both of those things at the same time. If you think I'm being unfair or unjust to House Marik, I'm just going to list off a bunch of things that they have done. They have created a long and complicated family tree of cadet and branch houses that constantly pose a threat in creating internal strife and power struggles within the Free Worlds League. They are forever trying to limit and crush the power of Parliament to the point of them just becoming a rubber stamp for House Marik to do whatever the hell they want, and thereby creating constant tension and distrust between the two of them. They have led and caused many, many civil wars, either by their own bloodline deciding to have a good old-fashioned brother versus brother proverbial fistfight over who gets to sit on the throne, or by alienating some member state or province to the point of them going into open rebellion, and then using said rebellions to make personal profit. They have literally been the only house to fall for that stupid, idiotic plan of having a body double switched for the real ruler of the successor state, and then having that said body double do a better job of ruling the state than the replaced real member of House Marik. And they, for the biggest whoopsie doodle, decided to invite a group of pseudo-fanatical cult members to set up shop in their own borders and allow them to grow and sow discord and destruction without realizing the true ramifications for their own decision before it was too late. And look, I can go on and on and on and on, and I know a lot of people here are going to be like, Frozen Front, you're already going very close to ranty, but I just have to say it for the record. I do not like House Marik, especially for how they have led the Free Worlds League. Remember how I was talking about Stewart commonality way back at the beginning of this episode? Yeah, the reason why there was even a war to conquest them was because of House Marik, who used them as an excuse, or at least I believe, used them as an excuse to create the position of Captain General so that they could be the rulers over the Free Worlds League. And you know what? Before I go into full rant tangent, I'm just going to give my closing thoughts. Removing my own personal biases aside, I think the overall role of House Marik has been middling to fairly decent overall throughout the entire time span and life of the Free Worlds League up until now. And in reality, both House Marik and the Free Worlds League need each other. House Marik knows, in terms of power in comparison to the rest of the royal houses throughout the successor states, that they're nowhere near their equal, and need the political organization of the Free Worlds League to maintain what they have right at this time. Meanwhile, the Free Worlds League, or the factions within, know that if they ever try to replace House Marik, that whatever alternative will most likely be a worse choice than what they already have, and so put up with House Marik and the power that they give them in exchange for not being just completely overrun by either a rival successor state or by someone who would act even more tyrannical than House Marik. In reality, the two of them are symbiotic in their need to survive. Both need the other, or else they'll fall apart. And perhaps that's the best for both of them. And who knows, once I do more research and look more in depth at the entirety of House Marik in terms of individuals, maybe this is all just complete and utter bologna, and I could be completely wrong. That also could be a possibility. So who knows? Maybe my perspective will change over time, but that's how I feel right now. Well, that was fun. Anyways, to get back onto what was the entire purpose of this episode, what do I think of the Free Worlds League and the splendid little mess that it is? And do I like it? Well, yeah, I honestly do. As a matter of fact, I love them for it. Oh boy, okay. I've held it in a little bit, but to those who don't like it when I go on a little spurg tangent, this is where, for the next 3 minutes, you may want to tune out, because I'm just gonna go on a rant. I find it fascinating that the Free Worlds League has been able to survive all of this throughout its entire existence in BattleTech and in the BattleTech universe. And yes, I know that within the lore, it has fallen apart. I know that in Dark Age, the Free Worlds League finally met its end due to its constant infighting. However, there is something very unique afterwards that happens at the end of Dark Age. And that is the Free Worlds League is able to reform and rebuild itself. And not only that, reform and rebuild itself to the same weird government of pseudo-republicanism that it originally left off. And I don't know, I find that incredibly endearing. I find it strange and amazing that this weird society in the little, like, west corridor of the whole inner sphere continually tries this whole, we're gonna band together instead of just unifying under one bland banner or one unique kind of society. It continually tries to be the melting pot of the inner sphere. And yes, don't get me wrong, I still know that House Marik, for all intents and purposes, are the pseudo de facto leaders of the Free Worlds League. But it just isn't the same when you look at it in comparison to other successor states. House Marik, yes, does get to have a lot of say within the Free Worlds League, but it has to deal with consequences, and it has to deal with everyone else having a say. And that is super interesting and far more entertaining to me than all the other houses having just one big authoritarian Machiavellian guy or gal deciding the fate of untold billions and billions and billions of people. I just find it far more intriguing and interesting to read and listen to. It makes for a better story. And maybe that's what I'll end with. I just find that the story of the Free Worlds League has so much depth and so much consequence that it just brings you in. Like, yes, you can mock and gawk and laugh at them, but they are just super interesting to watch and see how they react and what they do when scenarios and crises happen. Because truthfully, however the Free Worlds League responds to those said crises or times of conflict have vast ramifications for every other faction within the Inner Sphere and beyond. Whether people like to admit it or not, the Free Worlds League will never be a dominant player on the scene, but their reactions and retaliations to any sort of situation will have consequences for everyone else. And perhaps that's the best thing that the Free Worlds League has going for it, is that they have to be taken into consideration by everyone. Especially now with Ilkon. I'm kind of questioning whether I should do this, but I think at the end of every Dropship Banter, I'll talk about the faction's key role with Ilkon coming around the corner, because it is also something I find incredibly intriguing. As it stands, the Free Worlds League, again, is not going to be the big player this time around. At least I don't think so. They just reformed and they're trying to get their act back together. But with all the chaos of Clan Wolf deciding to literally shake the Inner Sphere down to its core, the Free Worlds League is in a very particular scenario and situation where, having recently reunified and rebuilt itself, they could not win, but grow more and become a bigger dominant power than they have previously. Do I think that they're just going to go outright crazy and just invade and conquer entire regions of space? No, not really. I don't think that's within their capability. Do I think that they're going to just go and cause trouble and get in some good old vengeance against people that have wronged them? Oh boy. Yeah, you better believe that the Free Worlds League has a list and it's about to just cross off a few people that have irked them really badly. But I think that's enough of that for now. This episode has already carried on long enough, so I'll just end it there. And with this one final thought, I truly do love the Free Worlds League. They are an amazing faction, and I am going to start actually building my own lance of them to start playing with on tabletop. And I'm going to try and find as many books and novels as possible that cover the Free Worlds League, because I want to just learn more about them. I absolutely adore them now. So there, Frozen Fronts side rant is officially concluded. To those who enjoy them, you're welcome, thank you. And to those who don't, well, deal with it, it's my show, I get to at least have one rant. Anyways, the pilot is screaming at me that we're about to crash land on Atreus because I've spent too much time talking and not looking at the fuel reserves, so I gotta make this quick. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Drop Ship Banter. Hopefully, if I survive this crash landing, I will see you all on the 25th, where we're gonna be jumping into the Lyran Commonwealth and talking about everyone's favorite Deutschlanders and their crazy, wacky ways. Until then, thank you all very much for listening to another episode of Drop Ship Banter. I hope to see you all on the next one. Until then, mech warriors, Frozen Front out.